questions that pop up during the presentation, please do go ahead and put those into that chat box. We will work those into the presentation as best we can. If you see me pausing, I am reading those live. And we will also have a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions on activities for auditory learners, absolutely get those in during the presentation if you have any that pop into your mind afterwards. But in the Q&A, feel free to bring your questions that have nothing to do with the auditory activities. If it's on homeschooling or parenting in general, or Montessori homeschooling in particular, we want to help you with all of those and officially welcome you to Schiller Learning's live Tuesdays at 2. I am Antoinette LaGrossa, your host, and Schiller Learning is part of the nonprofit Rising Stars Foundation. Our goal is to support educators and home educators specifically to give students multisensory support to help them fulfill their potential. We do support you in a number of ways, this Tuesdays at 2 being one of those, but be sure to explore our homeschool blog. There are numerous fabulous free resources and downloads on there for you. We also have math and language arts curricula and some social studies and additional Montessori-based resources for you as well. Now, everyone has their own unique learning style. There are 4 primary learning styles: visual, tactile, kinesthetic, and the one we're going to be focusing on today, auditory. Auditory activities are a great support for all learners, but indeed are essential for your child if the auditory modality is their dominant learning style. Auditory activities can also make for really memorable bonding between educator and child, parent and child. So it has additional layers of benefit just in the nature of the activities. They're also relationship building. Okay, so let's start off by looking at, what is an auditory learner? Well, auditory learners have excellent listening skills and learn most effectively through hearing and listening, and retain information better when it is delivered through sound, be it speech, auditory patterns, or music, rather than being delivered in written form. They can easily recall spoken information. Auditory learners may experience challenges when instruction or information is given primarily through written forms, but can easily understand when the information is auditory. They are very good listeners and can easily remember that information that has been spoken. They may have trouble recalling concepts presented in written text, but remember everything easily from a read aloud or conversation. A person who is an auditory learner relies on speaking and listening as their primary way of learning. So repeating information aloud to themselves even will help to commit that information to memory. And auditory learners then have very good storytelling and speaking skills. Auditory learners also perform well in oral exams as opposed to things that are going to be written. That is one of the reasons that the Schiller Learning Diagnostic Testing is designed to be an interactive conversation with the student as opposed to you handing the student a stack of papers and they read through and convey their knowledge through that. That is one of the reasons that a lot of students who previously struggle with academics, be it math or language arts, will instantly fall in love with Schiller Learning just in that placement activity because it's engaging that modality. The testing is multisensory. So not only is there auditory interaction in it, but there are visual displays, body movement even too. So, and that is something that no matter what curriculum you're using, you can modify any of your assessments to be done orally as opposed to the child reading and then having to write that information. The goal of an assessment is to see what a student's knowledge is. Writing and reading skills can be further developed through other activities. We don't need to have that interfere with assessing a student's knowledge. Students perform well in oral exams, and careers, by the way, that an auditory learner will excel in, some of those professions include things that regularly incorporate discussion and active listening. Management is one of those, as well as guidance counselors, customer service professionals. Don't you wish more people who were good at listening as well as nicely discussing things were in customer service professions? Attorneys, judges, sound engineers. So there are a lot of careers where the auditory learner is going to excel. Now, that said, auditory learners may experience some unique challenges. As your child's educator, there are some challenges that auditory learners may often encounter, and that if you're aware of and are able to keep an eye out for, you can help mitigate those things. So that, being aware of these potential downfalls of auditory learning can help you prevent them from negatively impacting your child's productivity and success in homeschooling. One of those is that they can potentially disrupt other learners in the work area while they are talking to themselves, humming to themselves, or singing while working. All of those things, that talking, humming, and singing, is going to help reinforce to the auditory learner the information that they are processing, but it indeed can be distracting to others around them. So that's something that you want to keep in consideration as you are planning your homeschool space and allotting the work areas for the different students that you're going to be working with. So now that we're helping to protect the attention span and focus of the students around them, let's talk about the attention of that auditory learner. So the attention and focus of an auditory learner may not be held if you're doing the instruction with activities, lessons that are using a dominant learning style, but especially reading and writing activities. Uh, Students of all learning styles are engaged when they're learning by doing, but and so whether that's that body movement, tactile, those interactive activities, and of course auditory, but the reading and writing can pose a special challenge to those auditory learners. So making those accommodations in the instruction can help to keep their focus. They can also be susceptible to auditory distractions and excessive noise in the environment because their brains are primed for focusing on the sound and processing that. And that information being processed auditorily is taking up that prime real estate in their cognitive function. So you want to try to minimize those noise distractions. So not having, you know, television on in the background. If you're like myself, I like to keep NPR playing on the radio when I'm in the kitchen. So if I have a child nearby who is learning and they are an auditory learner, which I do have some, I need to be aware of, oh, this is a time that I need to turn that radio off. Some of the activities that are going to resonate really well with your auditory learner, prime one is incorporating educational songs. Now, if you have a Schiller Learning Math or Language Arts, this is going to be fairly easy for you to do because you already have over 100 educational songs included with your curriculum. We are very fortunate, by the way, to have Ron Brown of IntelliTunes. He did the music for Schiller Learning curriculum. IntelliTunes website is a great resource for you if you are looking for music beyond that. And music in particular is very effective because it stores information in even more places in the brain than other auditory activities. So music is really effective even if your child's primary learning style is not auditory, but especially for those auditory learners. So we are homeschooling at a great time. There are tons of music resources. You can look on YouTube. You can also make up your own short educational songs and rhymes to go with any concept. You can use the Schiller Learning music, whatever your child's favorite song is in there. Use that, the same rhythm of that song and put some other words to it for a different concept. Now, with the auditory learner, we mentioned not having background noise that is going to be a distraction. Something interesting is that background music can also be beneficial for an auditory learner. So not something like news that's going to be distracting them with other information, but many auditory learners will benefit when there is some background music. Studies have shown that classical music will actually help a student to retain additional information as opposed to other styles of music being used for background noise. That can also help them to, concentrate more on the work that they are doing. Something else that you can do, by the way, to help to isolate out potentially distracting noise is for them to wear headphones. That is also true for that your other learners who might be around your auditory learner who might be talking, singing, or humming to themselves, headphones are another potential for that solution to have kids in really close quarters and help them to not be distracting each. Okay, the read alouds. Read alouds have many layers of benefit. We have a blog post on this on the Schiller Learning Homeschool blog, one of them being, increased vocabulary, which helps with early reading skills. But one of them, of course, for the auditory learner, is that they're able to receive that information auditorily in a way that they wouldn't if they were simply reading it silently to themselves. Read alouds are also very bonding. Some of my favorite memories as a child are family read alouds that we had, and some of my favorite moments with my children have come from those family read alouds. These, of course, are fabulous for any subject, but being aware of not only with fiction or nonfiction novels, but the read alouds can be done with any educational text. When you are doing the read aloud with the educational text, not only that can that be done for the instruction portion of that text, but then the problems that are coming with that, you can talk through those as opposed to having the child have to read and answer those in writing. Talking through those can also help you see what your child is, retaining through that reading selection and any areas that need additional review or explanation. Recording lectures and instruction. This is something that is going to be helpful for your auditory learner now and in the future when they are taking any classes, courses outside of the house, going to be very helpful when that student is if they're going on to college as well. Recording those lectures are going to be crucial for them. And by incorporating that in early on, it really helps them to get into that habit. So when you are doing that read aloud or you're giving instruction to the child, think about recording, if not all of them, but occasionally incorporating that in and getting the child used to recording those explanations and then going back and replaying that, learning how to take notes from those recordings. A note on note taking is that notes taken in cursive are going to be most effective for the child with being able to recall that information. The brain science on cursive is really interesting, and information written in cursive is going to be stored again in additional places in the brain where it wouldn't have been if they were simply typing that information out or printing it. So having the child learn note taking from recordings and doing so in cursive is going to be great for your auditory learners. That's a good question. So when the child is reading things aloud to themselves, so either your read aloud, you can record, they can also record themselves reading aloud. That's another good option. Just hearing that their own voice is also going to be helpful. And that's where that talking to themselves, humming, singing to themselves is something you'll commonly see an auditory learner do. So when they do have assigned reading, it's often beneficial to the auditory learner if they read that aloud to themselves as opposed to doing silent reading. and they can absolutely record themselves doing that, and even taking do note taking from their own recordings. Yeah, so recording the teacher, recording themselves, any of those are going to be really helpful. When your child is developing their storytelling, composition, and literary analysis skills, doing dictation as they are developing those skills is going to be really helpful. We don't want their dominant auditory learning modality to inhibit the development of those skills. Once they have the skills, then they can transition into doing that writing themselves. But writing it themselves is not really the most important part of those activities. It is learning about what a sentence is, what a paragraph is, the elements of an essay, what are the elements of a good story. When you're doing literary analysis, what is the information that we're trying to pull out of that? And the auditory learner is going to best develop those skills if it is done through a conversation type structure with you, and that as they are, giving those things, that you are simply doing, taking narration, they're doing dictation, you're writing that out, you're typing that. Once they're solid with those skills, then you transition them into doing the writing. It's going to be far more enjoyable for both of you, and they will end up with better composition skills in the end, and less tears for everyone. Okay, um, we could not have a session on sensory learning without talking about Larry Schiller's favorite manipulative, the simple but fun, colorful foam ball. This makes for a wonderful auditory review and practice of just about any concept or information that has already been introduced, and particularly effective math facts review. Is anyone in the session um, already done any activities with the ball in the curriculum? Okay, so, and just like when we are using the ball for a variety of reviewing definitions, uh, yes, okay, excellent. Your 4-year-old loves using the ball for activities. This really, for every learner, is a popular manipulative. Larry loves this really simple manipulative because it does indeed hit all four of those primary learning styles. So you've got that visual, tactile, kinesthetic, and yes, auditory. And by using all four, again, it's storing in the information in additional places in the brain. So it's helping to hardwire those concepts. And of course, if you are reviewing something not using your child's dominant learning style, it's not going to be as effective. And so with this, they're having to track that ball with their eyes, stimulating the optic nerve and storage there. It's stimulating the touch nerves in the palms of their hands. Throwing it, it's a really light foam ball that's not going to knock over anything in your house. If you don't have our super special high-tech foam ball, you can use something light like if you have a blow-up beach ball, or a really light foam ball. Our ball, by the way, is available for separate purchase. That is a popular manipulative with people. But it's light, but it's still engaging the major muscle groups. And with that, you're kicking in that kinesthetic learning, but it's all being done in an auditory exchange. So you're throwing the ball to the student, asking a question. If you're reviewing, you know, science terms, what are the criteria for a living organism? And you throw it to the child and they're going to be give the answer and throw it back to you. So you could, ask for that first criteria and then the second and so forth. Or you could throw it to the child and ask them what a noun is and go through the parts of speech with that. You can throw it to your child and review math facts. Let's say that we're going to review the 5 times table. I'm going to throw it to my child and say 5 times 1. They'll give the answer and throw it back. You can run through those sequentially, you can mix them up, and really all of the operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. The ball, it's really simple. It's a lot of fun. It also gives, students of all learning styles a break from seat work. This kind of review, by the way, makes a nice transition from one subject to another. So at the end of this of working on a particular subject, no matter what it is, again, it works for everything. You can spend 2 minutes tossing the ball, doing some review of things previously learned, and use that as a transition from one subject to another. And it helps to, burn off some of that energy that has built up if they're been still and focused, and helps them get ready to focus on that next topic. So excellent manipulative to include for any subject. And again, it's a fun auditory activity to include. Okay, well, that is going to wrap up the tips that we are including for auditory learners.